Good afternoon, Mark Sott with HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion, the afternoon edition here, the second one of today, the 18th of August. Happy Friday to you. Just a couple of days away from the eclipse. Going to talk about that later on with an update this evening, totally separate from what's going on in the tropics. But what is going on in the tropics? We do have Tropical Storm Harvey down in the southeast Caribbean Sea now. Winds are still 40 miles per hour. It's moving west fairly quickly at 21 miles per hour, and it's going to put it over into the vicinity of the western Caribbean in the next few days. And then we have Invest Area 92L, whose chances are diminishing for development now as upper level winds are becoming less favorable. And then we have Future 93L, more than likely out here to the east of everything, and it is sitting at 40% chance of development over the next 5 days. This is what the different items look like on the map in terms of their formation areas. So 92L, if it ever makes it out of this shear zone that's through here, would generally end up somewhere in the vicinity of the southeast Bahamas by days 5 and 6. Meanwhile, Future 93L more than likely curving on a path towards the open central Atlantic up here somewhere. Both of these have some potential for development, obviously, as that is outlined from the National Hurricane Center, but it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen, especially with 92L, just due to this unfavorable general environment that we're looking at, and I'll go into that as we move through the different tabs here on the browser. So the afternoon visible satellite image, we can see a couple things going on here. First, there's Harvey having passed through Barbados. I guess it would pass over Barbados, technically, and St. Vincent, the Grenadines, Grenada, etc. And that area received a lot of heavy rainfall. The flooding pictures coming out of Barbados, the video from there, not good. And we talked about that as being my main concern. I wasn't worried about, well, let's see how strong this is going to get wind-wise. We saw that the limiting factors were there, this sort of dry air, the fast movement of the system, etc. I keep saying etc. A good friend of mine that I've known for a while said, make sure you say it ET, etc. So I'm going to try to do that. Maybe it's a southern thing. So the dry air, etc., that was plaguing this system kept it in check in terms of the wind component, but that heavy rain that fell across this region and is still falling in some of the areas, a very, very big problem. And hopefully we don't have any loss of life or any injuries, but that is a terrifying situation when you have that much water. But it was talked about. That is a problem with these systems, even if the top winds are, quote, only 40 miles per hour. Let that be a lesson for everybody else. People in Jamaica know this well too, as do the folks in Haiti, and really anywhere where you had flooding issues, but this just reiterates it once again. So this is 92L, and it's definitely being plagued by strong upper-level winds coming this way, cutting across it like that. And then here's 93L, soon to be, I guess you would say. Very much larger system overall, and you can definitely see the curvature to it. It's just embedded within this Saharan air sitting out here, and so it's going to work its way farther to the west, more than likely, before trying to develop. A close-up shot of Harvey as it's moving through the Windward Islands now, passing through, and I guess you could say passing through, passing over, you get the idea. And for Barbados, within the next few hours, skies are going to clear rapidly, and hopefully you won't be assessing too much damage. I can't wait to hear from some of our friends down there that we've met via the internet here and see how things have turned out. Please let us know. For the rest of the area, that was a pretty intense area of convection that went off over St. Vincent and the Grenadines recently. There's Grenada over there. I think I have my geography right. And at least Trinidad, Tobago, you didn't have too much to be concerned with this system. I didn't see too much impact from it. But you can also notice everything's kind of stretched out. It's kind of being pulled apart a little bit like cotton candy, stretched out from east to west, kind of elongated. And that's due to this very strong easterly surge that's moving through the area, really pushing it faster than it can gather itself. So it's being stretched out just a little bit. But it is still intact and it's moving over very warm water, and we'll look at that in just a moment in terms of its future. The vorticity signature for it, hidden a little bit, of course, by the tropical storm symbol, but it's definitely still there. Bundled energy, might not be as well organized in terms of a well-defined low-level center and the structure of the system, but the energy with it is not being stretched out just yet. It's not elongated like you see here with future 93L as an example. And so this is definitely, going to be something to track as it moves through the Caribbean. Meanwhile, this is 92L's vorticity signature, and it's also fairly well-rounded in appearance. But again, the upper level wind's just not doing that system any favors. Switch over to blue here. So here is Harvey moving into the southeast Caribbean Sea, where upper level winds are going to become more favorable over time. And then here's this incredible upper level low over western Cuba, and this is moving off to the west as well. So all of this will be moving generally at the same time in tandem with each other to the west and west-northwest, meaning that Harvey has a chance to strengthen once it encounters favorable upper level winds. It was noted in the discussion earlier today that the moisture value in the atmosphere, the overall humidity, etc., hopefully I said it right that time, etc. It's hard. Believe it or not, it's a little tougher than one would think. In the Western Caribbean, upper level winds more favorable, and the ocean content, the heat content, which I'm going to show you in a moment, also very favorable. Meanwhile, 92L here is just really taking it on the chin. Strong upper level winds cutting across from this tropical upper tropospheric trough, fancy way of saying strong upper level low over the tropics, and boy it is, it's very intense. A pair of them here, one here and one here. If these were not here, we just had light upper level winds across the area, we would be dealing with a couple of hurricanes now, more than likely. You never know for sure, but it would sure seem that logic would dictate that anyway. So looking at 92L's future, I haven't paid attention to this much, and I said that I would later, so here we are. If it survives and doesn't just dissipate somewhere in this zone, which it could if upper level winds kill it off, then the model's generally fairly tightly clustered here on a track towards the Bahamas over the next 5 days. So this is literally going to be, hey, does it survive or does it not? Now, we have visited storms in the past that have done such things, where we were saying such things early on. If it survives, then we'll see what happens. I'm not going to remind you of what those are, you remember. So sometimes, yes, they do come back from what seems like the dead, and they find more favorable conditions in an area closer to the United States, and they pop. But that's the exception rather than the rule, obviously, or people wouldn't live where they live. So let's just keep an eye on it. There have been some interesting computer model runs that people are posting on social media, and it gets people kind of riled up and concerned. I don't like people getting worried when they don't understand what they're looking at. I do like it when people are paying attention to the tropics. That means that they are aware and they are engaged at least in some level. But if you simply post a 10-day graphic of a hurricane sitting over some city without any context to it for people that don't keep up with this stuff on a regular basis, then it can become worrisome, especially in a world where we have all this other stuff to worry about on the outside anyway. So my advice is don't worry about this. Let's see what happens over the next few days. And, that's what I'm here for. I'm not the only source, obviously. National Hurricane Center, the #1 official source, of course. But there are other people that make sense of this stuff. Follow them, you know who they are, including me, and we'll keep a calm resolve on this as we watch what happens. And that goes for Harvey as well. I showed the European 7-day forecast on my early morning update because I wanted to point out, with the context of that we need to see if this is the beginning of a trend. And we'll go and look at that on my evening update later tonight. But that's to come later. Also of note with 92L, I will point this out, a gradual overall ramping up of the intensity over the next 5 days as it gets through the shear, possibly. Certainly a few of the models just kill it off, as you can see here, but some of the statistical models and even the intensity consensus, which is this one right through here, indicating eventually this becomes a tropical storm. And so it certainly is, worth watching for obvious reasons. It's mid-August, and it is where it is. Now, Harvey's going to be moving through some pretty robust ocean heat content here, if that's the exact track. You never know. It could go into Central America. It could come farther to the north. We'll just have to see. But definitely an increase in upper ocean heat content through here, and certainly where 92L would be headed, assuming it survives, high ocean heat content as well. Certainly nothing to scoff at. And then a future 93L, depending on where it ends up out here somewhere, ever increasing upper ocean heat content values along its path as well. All right, so plenty to watch, nothing to get all upset about. If it comes to that, I'll be the first to let you know. Believe me, just want to keep people safe. And to that end, yesterday, forgive me for sounding like I'm tooting a horn here, my own horn for that matter, that I mentioned that the rainfall was my biggest concern with Harvey, especially for Barbados, and here it is that comes to pass. But it does not take, it's not like, wow, Mark's, he's incredible, he saw that and nobody else did. Well, that's nonsense. It said it in the Hurricane Center's public advisory, for goodness sakes. And experience told me, yes, that's what you need to look out for. And so I really, really hope that we don't have any loss of life down there from that very heavy rainfall. So people in the area, let me know that you're okay if indeed the infrastructure is up and allows you to do so. Real quick on the eclipse, a little teaser here because I'm going to do a special recorded little update on it and what I'm going to do, etc. I'm not an eclipse expert, but being a physical geographer, at least I know enough about it that I can talk about it intelligently. It's Monday. It's coming, and we're talking about 72 hours from right now for South Carolina, the coast where I'm going to be. It'll almost be happening. The totality will be very close at hand, only about a half hour away or something like that. And it's exciting. It really is. And I'm going to talk about it in an update tonight. Later on, I'm just going to post something completely off topic related to the eclipse. So if you're headed out for it, look at it like getting ready for a hurricane. Be prepared. Extra gas, food, water, some way to be able to use the restroom. Because if a million people are going to a city that normally has 2,000, that's a problem. So this is really going to be interesting for sure. But in the meantime, we're going to be watching the tropics. It's just incredible. All the excitement around these natural events. And as long as, the eclipse isn't going to hurt anybody as long as they don't do anything dumb. But as long as these tropical systems can stay fairly benign, the flooding in Barbados and the other regions down in the windwards notwithstanding, maybe we can get through all this. All right? Well, that is it from me for this afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll have another update on what's happening with Harvey this evening. And then at some point, like I said, we'll just say before midnight tonight, I'll put a special video blog on covering the eclipse and what I'm going to do with it, etc. See, I said it right there. And I'll have more for you then. Thanks for watching.